Howdy, and welcome to our YouTube page. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic. We're going to be talking about AI in the church and AI in fundraising. So, I'm Andrew Robison with Petrus Development. I'm excited you're here. We'll be coming to you over the next days, weeks, months with a lot of content, a lot of information, a lot of education about AI. But before we start diving into all of those videos, we felt like it was important just to say, why is Petrus involved in AI? What's the landscape of AI right now? Just to get us started off on the right foot. So I've got Rhen Hoehn. Rhen is our director of marketing. Rhen is on this video as well. He'll be asking a couple of questions just to keep us on track. But really, the point of this video is to introduce what AI is doing right now, what the potential is, and then what is Petrus's role in this.
All right. Howdy, Andrew. Excited to
Hey,
be
Rhen.
here. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So we hear it. Everybody knows AI. Everybody's heard a lot about it. I think there's a lot of kind of leeriness about it within Catholic organizations, within the church. Why should Catholic organizations be looking at using AI in their day-to-day?
Right. So from my perspective, my perspective really changed after I read a book called The Empire of AI by Karen Howe. Really great read. Goes through the whole history of OpenAI, which is really the dominant player in the AI world right now. They're the ones that introduced ChatGPT, which fundamentally transformed the landscape and the user experience. But it was a couple of points that sort of conceptualize for me in there is they talk a lot about this race to the bottom. And so AI right now, right, it's 2025. AI has been around, sort of been around for a couple of decades, 30, 40 years, really been implemented since the early 2000s. But the drivers of this technology are the businesses and the companies that are developing it, right? So you've got AI, you've got Google, you've got Microsoft, you've got Apple, you've got all of these big tech players that are developing AI tools. Well, what are they developing it for? They're developing it to maximize their own profit. There are some players in there that are looking at AI as used by, how can it sort of serve mankind? There's certainly that there, but at the end of the day, these are all for-profit companies that have shareholders that they have to deliver a return for. So what that means is it becomes this, what they call this race to the bottom. It's, I'm willing to go this far to make a profit. Well, another company, I'm willing to go this far. So if that's the landscape of who's developing AI, as the church and as the nonprofit community, right? Because that's what we do is faith-based fundraising. What we're going to get stuck with if we're not part of those conversations, if we're not part of the creation of tools, what we're going to get stuck with is tools and resources that these companies think, well, developing it for these other groups. We're just going to throw whatever is left at the church, or we're going to throw whatever is left at what we think the nonprofit community can use. So we're not going to have tools that are actually serving us in meaningful ways if we're not part of the development and part of the thought behind what are the important ways that AI can be used for good. What are the important ways that AI can be used for evangelization, but also for faith-based fundraising and funding our organizations. So from my standpoint, that's why I think we need to be involved in AI as a company, as Petrus Development, but then also as faithful Catholics, as nonprofit leaders. That's why I think we need to be part of these conversations.
That makes a lot of sense. What would you say is kind of the general thought around the Catholic world when it comes to AI? What's the landscape of that?
Yeah, so you were telling me offline that you've received a couple of communications, or you've seen a lot from bishops or from, church leaders in general that are really sort of cautioning against AI being a replacement of relationships. Is that right?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So I definitely think that's a risk, right? You've got the extreme situations where people are, having robot girlfriends, and they're replacing their therapist with AI, and right, there are extremes to that. But what that attitude of we don't want to use the technology because of the harm that it could do is, I think, a disservice to what the technology can be used for good. So I'm going to give you three examples, right? Let's think
Okay.
about the car, right? So when the car was first being invented, when it was first being utilized back in the 1920s, there were a lot of people that said, we don't want this technology. Cars are dangerous. More people are going to die, right? It's going to replace the farriers, the stable workers, the people that breed and raise horses. There's a danger to this technology. We don't want it. And yet automobiles provide now, 100 years later, provide us access to places that we would never be able to get to, provide us an opportunity to build community and have relationships that we would never be able to if we were truly reliant on the technology of horse and buggy at the time. So that's one technology I think that is people were afraid of at the beginning because of the risks, and now but the utilization, the exploration of that technology has led to discoveries and relationships far beyond that. Um, a second technology would be the internet, right? So when the internet was just coming around and people were building websites, there were a lot of cautionary tales about, the technology of the internet being a replacement for your memory, right? Like people are going to be idiots because they don't have to remember anything. You can just go look it up on the internet, right? And we're not going to meet in person and have relationships because people can email and they can get on video and talk to people on the internet. And yet the internet has brought about the discovery, the connections, tools and resources in our world that there are some negative tools and negative aspects of it for sure, but it's brought around so much richness, and especially, Catholics that are engaging in it, nonprofit leaders that are engaging it, are utilizing it in really powerful ways. And then a third technology, which I can speak to my experience. I worked for a guy years ago, and I was the shovel guy in the ditch, right? So he was up in the excavator digging the ditch while I was down in the trench, making sure that he didn't hit any power lines or gas lines. Well, you think about that example, and we dug ditches across roads. We bulldozed land so they could build houses. In order for me with a shovel to dig the ditches that to make it across one road, it would have taken 50 guys with shovels 2 weeks to be able to accomplish that. And one guy in an excavator was able to accomplish what we ultimately did. And so that's a use of technology that right there is a risk of the loss of job, and yet how much good is done because excavators exist, because power tools exist, because there's these tools that can maximize our efficiency and our effectiveness beyond ways that we could otherwise ever dream of.
And when you look at that and you see how effective those tools are and how obvious the implementation is, when you look at AI, it's kind of the same thing where you see where the tools are heading, even if they're not quite there yet. And you see, okay, it's going to be ridiculous to do things kind of the old manual way in some of these tasks when we could just essentially offload it to a computer to do for us, right? What is the landscape of AI in general right now, and maybe where do you kind of see it heading, or how is it progressing?
Great. So AI in the world is used in ways that you probably don't even realize. Right? If you get on a Google Maps and you plan a route, it's using AI to be able to anticipate traffic patterns and anticipate the way that the weather is going to affect things. That's all. It's able to do that with a lot more efficiency than it used to because of AI. Netflix, right? If you get on Netflix or Hulu or any of the streaming services, you pick a movie or a show to watch, and it recommends others. That's because it's using AI to determine what are your preferences, what kind of shows do you like, and what do we think that you'd like more of. If you do email, you've got spam filtering tools. If you write in Google Docs or anything, there's ways to kind of help you with some of your writing. There's a lot of practical applications for AI that in no way are replacing relationships, but are making us able to accomplish more and to be more and to maximize again, going back to the excavator, right? Maximize my effectiveness and efficiency in whatever way I am, particularly as a person who's fundraising for the church or for fundraising for a nonprofit. It can maximize my efficiency without eliminating the ability to develop real relationships with my donors.
Great. So you've kind of showed how there's these tools that exist already, and there's these big companies investing in AI. They're kind of it's us as Catholic organizations are just kind of make them fit into our, and the square pegs into the circle hole type of thing. Like just
Right.
make their tools fit into our processes, unless we kind of custom build them to fit with the church's mission, right? What are we doing at Petrus going forward with AI to maybe change that?
Great. So we are going to be involved in the development of AI tools for Catholic fundraisers. Bottom line, that's what we're going to do. How we do that is evolving and developing, but I can tell you right now that we're investing significant time, energy, resources into understanding AI, into developing tools that can be used by fundraisers, by Catholic leaders, by anybody, to be able to do better evangelization, more efficient ministry, more effective fundraising. In fact, we'll talk about it on another episode, but a couple of weeks ago, we had our first company AI hackathon, and it was awesome. We got together. There were myself and you and two other members of the team, and we built AI agents for 2 days, and we explored what's possible. And at the end of that, we came out with 12 solid agents, right? Tools that can do work for you, that are able to accomplish tasks that would otherwise take you hours or days to do, can now be done in a couple of minutes. And so I think what we're going to see, what we're going to bring to you on this channel, is more content, more insights into what those tools are. There's also going to be a lot of education about, AI. There's a lot of phrases, there's a lot of words, there's a lot of concepts that, I mean, quite frankly, I still am learning a lot of that. But we're going to bring you as much education as we can to make you comfortable with what AI is, what it can do, how it can be used, and then also what are the tools that Petrus is developing. So I think that it's going to be fun. We'll be doing a lot more of these videos so that you can learn what AI is and that you can explore some of the tools that we're developing. And so we can create a channel so that you can tell us, what do you need? What would be most helpful for you in your work? And are those tools that Petrus can work on developing for you? So as we're doing that, as we're coming up with these videos, if you want to follow along, you want to subscribe, definitely hit the button to subscribe, like these videos so more people will see them, and send us emails, send us messages. We've got our website, petrusdevelopment.com. You can leave a comment in this video, but we want to hear from you. We want this to be a community of people that are exploring what AI can do to make your role, to make our work in Catholic faith-based nonprofit fundraising more effective, more efficient, all for the mission of the church and for God. So definitely follow along with us, subscribe, like the videos, and can't wait to see you down the road. Thanks, and God bless.